Chair, thank you very much for calling this important hearing, and thank you for making our committee a leader in defending democracy and the voting rights of the people against this escalating onslaught by Donald Trump and his supporters against American constitutional democracy. We know that Mr. Trump never accepted the results of the 2020 presidential election, despite the fact that Joe Biden beat him by more than 7 million votes and by a margin of 306 to 232 in the Electoral College, a margin, incidentally, that Mr. Trump declared a landslide when he beat Hillary Clinton by the exact same amount. So Donald Trump moved quickly to try to browbeat state election officials, and they were the first line of defense of the democracy. People like Republican Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger in Georgia, who refused to participate in Donald Trump's election fraud, refusing to find just 11,781 votes that Donald Trump said was all he needed in order to overturn the lawful result in the state. But there were election officials across the country who definitively refuted and repudiated Donald Trump's claims of corruption and fraud. And in fact, Trump's own Homeland Security Department declared the 2020 election the most secure in American history. So then he went to court, and 61 federal and state courts in the land, from the lowest courts in the land, state, county, district courts, to federal district courts, all the way up to the United States Supreme Court, definitively, meticulously, and comprehensively refuted, repudiated, and rejected every claim that Donald Trump's supporters made that there was election fraud or electoral corruption. And even the claim that some of our colleagues have decided to float again today, which has been rejected all the way up to the Supreme Court, was one that was thoroughly vetted. The idea that when state election administrators or state Supreme Courts under state constitutions or under state legislative command act in the electoral process, that's somehow unconstitutional. There's no basis for that. It's been made up. It was floated in all of these courts, rejected in all of these courts. It was floated by the Attorney General of Texas, who sued in the Supreme Court. It was rejected. And then it was floated again on the House floor on January the 6th as the violent insurrectionary mob attacked us. It was rejected again. And yet the big lie lives now in these phony audits around the country. It was amazing and yet telling for me to hear the gentleman from Arizona. Essentially, I think he's trying to elide the fact that this audit rejected the claim that Donald Trump won in Arizona. I never really understood members from Arizona challenging the result by which they themselves were elected in the exact same election where they were elected. And yet still, I believe, and perhaps Mr. Biggs can correct me if I'm wrong, I hear him not even to be accepting the results of this audit, which say that Joe Biden got more votes than were lawfully reported by the state. And so,
will the gentleman yield? You've called me out and asked if I would respond. I'm happy to respond.
Yes, but by all means, do you accept this audit, which showed that Joe Biden won, and indeed by more votes than?
That is not what the audit concluded, Mr. Raskin. You know better than that. Have you read the whole audit, or you cherry-picked the line which talks about the recount versus the tabulation machines? That we would have expected to be very similar, and it was. And so anything that might have inured to President Biden's effect. Who won the election is my question, Mr. Biggs. I'm happy to yield to you for that. Who won the election in Arizona? Donald Trump? We don't know, because as the audit, it demonstrates very clearly, Mr. Raskin, there are a lot of issues with this election that took place. We're going to go through those today, but you can continue, speaking of the big lie, you can continue to perpetuate it as long as you want, but we're going to find out.
Reclaim my time. Madam Chair, there's the problem that we have. Donald Trump refused to accept the results, and unfortunately, we have one of the world's great political parties, which has followed him off of the ledge of this electoral lunacy. And it's dangerous for democracy. So I'm glad we're having this hearing today, and I yield back to you, Madam Chair.